Hello and welcome once again to the video. In this one I thought I would take a little look at the recently finished TV series, Star Wars TV series, Skeleton Crew. Now, as some viewers will know, I am a big Star Wars fan, having seen Star Wars in the cinema. So I'm original generation fan. I was nearly 7 when I saw the film in the cinema on the 21st of March 1978 in the UK. So it having been released nationwide in the UK in January 1978. But in London in December 1978, having been released in America in May 77. Right. So, from that perspective, as a big Star Wars fan, obviously I have opinions. But what I'm not going to do, what I don't do on any other videos where I look at Star Wars films or TV series, I'm not going to automatically go in for the attack. There are lots of YouTube channels out there that automatically attack Star Wars. Yeah, I have negative views and positive views, but I'm not just going to go all in one direction. So, Skeleton Crew. This is not a detailed review or anything. These are just my thoughts from having watched it. And as ever, I'm joined by my companion here, my Millennium Falcon. I tend to play with this whilst doing my Star Wars videos when I look at... I don't want to call them review videos because it's not a proper review. It's just my thoughts on the series. This particular one, Skeleton Crew, was not created by the usual pair of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, although they were executive producers. I always remember Jon Favreau from Friends, where he took part in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, didn't he? He was trying to be Ultimate Fighting Champion. He was playing a millionaire, Monica's boyfriend, trying to be Ultimate Fighting Champion. That's the same Jon Favreau, who is currently at the top of the creative tree for Star Wars, along with Dave Filoni, who's been at Star Wars for a long time, mostly connected to the animation. Anyway, this one was created by John Watts and Christopher Ford, who I've not heard of before. They created this one. So, general thoughts, the vibes. Well, obviously, anyone who's seen it, so if they've seen the Goonies, they will see the exact, not copy, but they've definitely gone for a Goonies vibe. The Goonies was that made in 1985, I think, wasn't it? And it's not one of my favourite films. I've seen it a few times, but it doesn't thrill me to the core. But that's kids getting a little bit lost in an adventure and encountering all sorts of things. Although that's still on planet Earth. But that's also to do with pirates. The Goonies is also to do with pirates. Specifically a dead pirate, isn't it? I think in the Goonies, the main sort of baddie is a dead pirate. And here, of course, you've got a lot of focus on the dead pirate. And I forget his name now, but in Skeleton Crew, the captain of their ship. So yeah, very Goonies-ish, which is a deliberate thing. They've done that deliberately, and I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. It's very odd, the setup for the home world, the kids' home world. It looks like a suburb in Los Angeles, on planet Earth. Kids cycling past, throwing newspapers onto the front gardens, that sort of thing. Very, very odd. They did have you can see that it's Star Wars though, because in the opening scene they do have, is it a hammerhead? I think it's a hammerhead walking her dog along the road. The alien that is, not officially called Hammerhead, but everyone calls them a hammerhead. And she's walking her dog, which is a normal dog. So yeah, that's a little bit strange. The character Neel, okay, spelled Neel, okay, so they've not made that too human, but it still sounds very human, Neel. I don't think Neel is a name used very much in America, is it? But it's used a lot in the UK, in England. But he's just too human. Neel is too human, even though he looks like an elephant. He's way too human. So his voice and his mannerisms and everything. So that home world, along with the characters, are all very, very human, even the aliens. Which doesn't sit tremendously well with me, I have to say. I didn't like that aspect to it. The casting, I think, was fantastic, or I suppose the acting, I can say, was fantastic. Jude Law is amazing as Jod Na Nawood, the sort of is he good, is he bad rogue, basically. You get definite Han Solo vibes from him, but he ends up being, a bit more bad than good, but not totally bad. But Jude Law toes that line very well, that grey line. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? You never really know. You know he's a bit of a chancer. You know that he's a pirate. Is he a pirate with a good heart? That lasts for the whole 8 episodes, and even at the very end, he refuses to kill anyone, which he could have done in order to win the day and win all the money. He could have killed a couple of people, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, which tends to suggest that was all a lot of bluff. I know he kills a pirate. He kills that Wolfman pirate, but I think that's the only person he kills in the whole thing. And that Wolfman pirate is the first time since the original non-special edition version of Star Wars. It's the first time since the cantina scene that we've seen the Wolfman. The actual alien is called a Shistavanen. A Shistavanen? I don't know if you pronounce it that way. I only looked it up about 10 minutes ago. Shistavanen. It could be a Shistavanen, or it could be a Shistavanen. Not a very good name for an alien. But, yeah, it's that Wolfman fella who growls at another alien in the original cantina scene. It was changed. For some reason, in the special edition, they changed him for a different alien. So people who have only seen the special edition won't have seen Wolfman until Skeleton Crew. But yeah, Jod does kill him. But he was a baddie, so that's okay. But the acting is great. The acting also another really good acting performance was by Ryan, strange name for a girl, but Ryan Kiera Armstrong, who played Fern. I thought she was very, very good. She's only 12 years old, but she was just reminded me a little bit of Carrie Fisher's performance in Star Wars. Very plucky, very punchy, aggressive. That was a fantastic performance by Carrie Fisher, but she was 19 at the time, not 12. So Ryan Kiera Armstrong, very strong performance. Who knows? We might hear a lot from her in the future, or she might just disappear. Who knows? I also liked SM-33, a little bit piratey, but still a good character that I enjoyed watching. He was a little bit arg, all the stereotypes of a pirate, basically, in that android. But he was played by Nick Frost, the English actor who was in, comedy actor, who was in Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, Paul. Always acting alongside his pal, Simon Pegg. And I believe Simon Pegg, wasn't he in The Force Awakens? He played that guy at the beginning that Rey was trying to sell bits of scrap to. That particularly nasty person behind the counter that she was trying to sell scrap to. I think that was played by Simon Pegg. I think. And Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are sort of a comedy team. So yeah, that's interesting. Now the plot. As ever with a Star Wars TV series and Disney era film, there are massive plot holes all over the place. 9 planets. Attin is one of 9 planets, all called At something. At the end we find out that the great work is simply maintaining this mint. But what's not explained is that the case with the other 9 planets? We hear what some of those 9 planets are. We hear the names of some of those 9 planets. I don't think they're all called At. Actually, I can't remember what they're all called now. I think Corellia is one of them, isn't it? I think Corellia is one of them. And they're supposed to be special, lovely planets being protected. There was nothing lovely about Corellia in the film Solo. It was a horrible place. But anyway, they go to, in episode 4, that's the episode that I have a big problem with, episode 4. Now that's the Lord of the Flies, capture the flag, blue team against red team, load of old nonsense. I don't know what was going on with that. But that planet looks identical. All the buildings are supposed to be identical. They comment on how everything's the same, just run down. So what's the explanation for that? You might build 9 planets that are similar, but they wouldn't be identical, would they? So what was going on with that planet? Never explained. Similar sounding name. All the buildings in the same place, just overgrown. Never explained. How did it get to the stage where it was just a bunch of kids running around with some adults playing capture the flag? How did it get to that stage? That episode was a real letdown. I really didn't like that episode. I thought it was ridiculous. It was just very, very silly. And even down to, there was a girl playing the main the main kid on the blue team. And she would, whenever she wanted to get from point A to point B, she would take a run up and do a slide on her knees or something. And we're all supposed to go, wow, that's amazing. I'm surprised she didn't get her skateboard out. I just thought that was ridiculous. It's the only episode I didn't enjoy. I just thought it was bonkers. Graphics and sound, good. As ever, in the Disney era, they look fantastic. There is always normally, I don't think it was a problem with this series, but in the past, other series, especially Ahsoka, there's this problem with underpopulation. They'll go to a city or they'll go to a planet and there'll only be about 5 people living there. Massively underpopulated when you compare it with the prequel series. The Coruscant, how massively populated that was, and Naboo as well, and Tatooine. But the Disney era TV series, there hardly seems to be anyone anywhere. Massively underpopulated, but that wasn't particularly a problem with Skeleton Crew. I didn't see that as being an issue so much, apart from in episode 4, where there was just 2 gangs on the whole planet. One of them had about 25 people in the blue team, and one had 25 people in the red team. It's just, walking around with sharpened sticks. So, yes, that wasn't an issue with this one, the normal underpopulated world. Numerous directors, as ever, with Disney, just like they do with the film trilogy, where it was all different directors. Well, I say that, I always forget the name of that director who did Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. Abram? Yeah, I always forget the rest of his name. Anyway, he did 2 films, of course, in the trilogy, but only by accident. He wasn't supposed to do the third one. He was brought in to do the third one after yet another change by Lucasfilm, yet another decision change. But here on their TV series, they have numerous directors all chipping in. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I would rather it be one person's vision, just like the original Star Wars was one person's vision. I don't like all the chopping and changing with directors. It's probably, I've heard it's probably a one and done. So one series, and then that's it. They have sort of left it open. I mean, what happened to Jod in the end, we don't know. He just sort of smiled and threw his gun on the floor and smiled, and that's it. So we don't know what happened to Jod. We assume he was arrested, but he could have easily escaped. They've left that open. Not necessarily for a second series of Skeleton Crew, of course. It could just be for another story involving Jod Na Nawood. What a name that is, Jod Na Nawood. Very strange name. Difficult to remember. Took me a while before I could instantly recall that name. But a fantastic performance by Jude Law. Very, very well played. He really stood out. And they were all good actors in this. I couldn't fault any of the acting. Well, maybe Wim's dad. What was his name? Weldon or something. Wim's dad. He just seemed to act like he didn't know where he was. But maybe that's the character. Maybe the character is supposed to be played that way. So I don't want to criticise him for that. So I'm going to say very good acting, very good visuals, seeing all the X-Wings and a couple of B-Wings as well. We haven't seen B-Wings, I don't think, since the original trilogy. Not in live action anyway. So a couple of B-Wings and the X-Wings coming in. And the great thing is, in this series, they actually portrayed the New Republic as being good guys. They normally portray them as being just as bad as the Empire, to controlling and arresting everyone all the time, and X-Wings coming up and saying, oh, hand over your ship, to them. In the Mandalorian, they're pretty much shown as baddies, even though they did save the Mandalorian from those giant spiders in Series 2. But it's the New Republic is portrayed as being overly bureaucratic, tied up in its own rules and regulations, and very weak. So this was a change to see them charging in and doing some good. No Jedi in this. Well, yeah, that's right, no Jedi, because Jod had been trained a little bit with Force powers by the Jedi that had discovered him in the streets when he was a kid, before she had died, though, so she couldn't complete his training. Not that she was necessarily training him to be a Jedi as such, but yes, he has Force powers, but he's not a Jedi. But that's okay, because I'm a bit worried about what Disney would do to the Jedi anyway in another series, after they completely tore them apart in The Acolyte. The Acolyte is my least favourite of the Disney era TV series, where the Jedi are portrayed as being a bunch of hopeless idiots, basically, aren't they, in The Acolyte? It's bad acting, or it might be bad writing, possibly bad casting creating the bad acting, but nevertheless it culminates in bad acting all the way through the Acolyte, especially by the twins, May and whatever the other one was called. Terrible, where they just stare at the camera aimlessly all the time. Terrible acting. But the Jedi were portrayed so badly in the Acolyte. Real clumsy oafs, Keystone Cops, basically. Didn't know what they were doing. Didn't know their bottom from their elbow, basically. So I was glad that there were no Jedi in this, because I don't think Disney... well, maybe it was the particular writer who did... there was one particular creator who did the Acolyte, and she went for it against the Jedi. She really did. Tore them to pieces in the Acolyte. So overall, this was, I think it was an okay one and done. It doesn't seem to have been watched by very many people, by all accounts, less so than any of the other TV series. I think now they need to try and focus on getting back to basics with Star Wars. Stop trying to experiment. Get back to basics. We've got the next film that's coming up should be The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is a terrible title, I think. But and what worries me about that is it just going to be a 2-hour episode? 2 hour instead of we've had 3 series of episodes. Now we're going to get a 2-hour long episode in the cinema, just like we have with the X-Files. Is it just going to be a longer episode in the cinema, or is it going to look noticeably different because it's a movie? I don't know. That worries me a little bit. That's something else as well about these TV series. The episodes are too short. If you look at House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, those things, hour-long episodes, sometimes more than an hour. You really feel like you've gone through something intense if you sit down and watch a whole episode of Game of Thrones or the sequel House of the Dragon. You really feel like you've gone through something hardcore, and you need a bit of a rest afterwards. So these episodes, they last about 20 minutes. If you take out the opening credits and the end credits, you're left with about maybe 25 minutes if you're lucky. 20 to 25 minute episodes. That is appalling, and it's the same with them all. Going right back to season 1 of Mandalorian, where the episodes sometimes would be as long as 40 minutes, but they would often be 28 minutes or something. Why so short? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, negatives and positives there. But let's move on to the second series of Andor. That's the next thing being released in the spring. I look forward to that. It's not very Star Warsy, Andor, but it's a very good, strong science fiction TV series. It's just not very Star Warsy. But I'm looking forward to that. Mandalorian and Grogu is released, supposed to be released December 2026, I believe. That should be the next film coming out. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on Skeleton Crew. Oh yeah, it's also still not explained how the ship crashed, how it was, how long ago it crashed. I assume it was a long time ago when it crashed on the original planet at Attin. Why did the pirates all seem to kill each other? None of that's explained, but it isn't in Disney-era Star Wars. You get these plot holes all over the place and things just not explained. That's just the way it is. It's not a big deal. Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if you'd like to subscribe, please do so. If you'd like to comment or what else? Comment or like the video, that's right. Or even tip the video on the thanks button underneath the video. Anyway, thanks for now. Thanks once again for watching, and I will see you on the very next video. Goodbye.